Something happened in that Senate hearing that almost nobody expected, because for the first time in a long time, the truth about one of the darkest scandals in modern American history was inches away from finally being revealed. And right when it looked like the door was about to open, someone slammed it shut. If you've ever wondered how powerful people protect each other, how transparency gets buried under procedure, or how one amendment can be twisted into its opposite, this moment is the perfect example. And the way it unfolded didn't just expose a political disagreement. It exposed a system built to keep certain truths locked away from the public. It all started with a proposal, simple, direct, and fully within the public's right to know. The idea was to force the Department of Justice to release the full Epstein files.
But I'm going to stick with my amendment until I get satisfaction on it.
The clerk will call the roll.
So what are we voting on? I have no idea. On my amendment?
No, we're voting.
It's the second degree.
Call the roll on the Cornyn amendment.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mr. Cornyn.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. Hawley. Mr. Tillis. Mr. Kennedy.
Aye by proxy.
Mrs. Blackburn.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Schmidt.
No.
Mrs. Britt.
Aye by proxy.
Mrs. Moody. Mr. Durbin.
No on concealing the Epstein files.
Mr. Whitehouse.
No.
Ms. Klobuchar.
No by proxy.
Mr. Cruz.
No by proxy.
Mr. Blumenthal.
I vote no because I vote no on concealing the Epstein file.
Ms. Verona.
No by proxy.
Okay.
Mr. Booker.
I vote no on this effort to conceal the Epstein files.
Mr. Padilla.
Own
Mr. Welch.
No, I'd like the Epstein files.
Mr. Schmidt.
No on concealing the Epstein files.
Chairman Grassley.
Aye.
On this vote, the ayes are 12, the nays are 10.
Okay, the Cornyn amendment is adopted. Now we will go to the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. So his second degree, which had nothing to do with immigration, which was to conceal the Epstein file, Senator Cornyn's effort to conceal the Epstein files right here on 1 and 2 has now violated my amendment. There is no amendment anymore. It passed.
That's right.
Yeah,
And Cornyn is saying, yes, I did something to stop the American public from seeing the Epstein files. It renders my amendment moot. That was the intention of Senator Cornyn's amendment that he just passed, which was to conceal
Chairman, I
the...
have to respond. Nothing we are voting on today is going to change any of the debate about the Epstein files.
Is
That
that a
debate will continue.
That is not
And if
true.
you don't acknowledge that, I just have to, I really question whether your amendment is actually in good faith or not, because nothing's going to change that. But, Mr. Chairman, my second degree amendment passed, which included striking the Senator Booker's amendment. I believe we've, committee's spoken.
May I respond? He directly referenced me. May I respond? Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So Mr. Cornyn claims that nothing about this would end debate. We're not seeking to end debate. We're seeking to pass legislation out of this committee that would force the disclosure and the transparency and the truth being made public. We had a chance today that Senator Cornyn blocked to make the truth known to the American public. We had the power today, the possibility today, to force out the truth regarding the Epstein files and the lies and the obfuscation that is happening by this administration. What Senator Cornyn did today was to block the truth about what's happening with the Department of Justice and the Epstein file. It is that on its plain truth, no matter how much he wants to try to dodge that truth.
Mr. Chairman, I have to respond.
Well, quickly, because
I
Graham
will
wants to
respond
speak.
quickly.
Take your time.
What Senator Booker is trying to do is to kill this underlying bipartisan bill that will hopefully save hundreds, maybe thousands of lives because of the opioid crisis. It's already taken tens of thousands of lives in this country over recent years because of the Biden open border policies. So I'm simply trying to preserve this bipartisan legislation, again, that will save lives. The debate that he and I are having over the Epstein files, I doubt will be resolved today based on any amendments either he or I offer. So that's the reason for my amendment, because I want to save lives from the opioid crisis. And I believe his amendment is a distraction from that and actually will jeopardize seeing this bipartisan legislation enacted into law.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
No, I'm calling on Grant.
I thought you were going back and forth, sir. I didn't know
I'll
that.
be real quick. So if Senator Booker's problem is with the bill itself, which it seems to be, I understand that. Hopefully we can work out a way to get money to your state you think does justice for New Jersey. I got that. That makes perfect sense. But the Epstein amendment, present it some other way, it's not going away. What we're trying to do with this bill is really good. And there's no end to this, a way of doing business here. If this is a headline about Cornyn blocks transparency of Epstein, then that would be sad, because he's responding to your amendment that would make the bill, quite frankly, fail. I want to help Senator Booker with your problem, but what you're doing, I don't think is helpful to the bill. I don't think it's helpful to the committee. I don't think it's helpful to your problem.
Senator Graham, there's not been a time in my career where you said you want to help me that you didn't. So I'm going to take you up on that, and I'm going to withdraw I'm going to withdraw my amendment.
You're a good man, and I will try to deliver with Senator Grassley the best I can.
Mr. Chairman, I would also ask leave to withdraw my amendment and vote on the underlying bill.
Not summaries, not redacted snippets. The complete truth. These files could answer questions people have been asking for years. Questions about who knew what, who was involved, who looked the other way, and who used influence, money, or political power to protect themselves. For once, an elected official stepped forward and said what millions of Americans have been feeling. If there's nothing to hide, then why are these files still buried? Why is the government fighting so hard to keep the full picture from ever seeing daylight? The amendment was straightforward. It didn't rely on speculation, didn't depend on rumors online. It was simply about transparency, something every administration promises, but very few deliver. But the moment that amendment hit the table, something else hit right back. A second-degree amendment, that quiet, technical phrase Washington uses to disguise a political weapon. Senator C slid in a procedural maneuver that passed on paper but gutted the meaning of the original proposal. It was like agreeing to open a door and then quietly nailing it shut from the inside. The move was subtle enough for people who weren't paying close attention to miss it. But to anyone watching closely, including the senator who introduced the transparency measure, it was obvious what happened. A decision had been made, not to argue openly against transparency, not to defend secrecy in plain language, but to bury truth behind rulebook gymnastics. And that's when the frustration erupted, because this wasn't about a political gotcha. This wasn't about left or right. It wasn't even about the personalities in the room. It was about a pattern, one the public has seen again and again. A moment where accountability is within reach, and suddenly, a procedural fog rolls in. People talk about amendments, motions, bylaws, technicalities, anything to distract from the fact that a truth someone doesn't want exposed is being quietly pushed back into the shadows. That's why the senator fired back so forcefully. He said it plainly. This wasn't a coincidence, and it wasn't innocent. It was an attempt to conceal the Epstein files, to keep the full truth tucked away. And he didn't sugarcoat it. He pointed directly at the maneuver and said it out loud, what many believe but rarely hear from people inside the system. His voice wasn't just frustration. It was a warning. Because when the government chooses secrecy over sunlight, especially in a case involving trafficking, manipulation, and global influence networks, it sends a message that accountability is optional for the powerful. And then came the counterpunch. The senator who introduced the second-degree amendment insisted it had nothing to do with the Epstein files. He argued that the real priority was a bipartisan opioid bill, claiming that focusing on the transparency amendment would derail legislation intended to save lives. On the surface, that argument sounds compassionate, almost noble. But if you listen closely, a deeper tension emerged, because demanding transparency isn't a distraction from saving lives. It's part of saving them. When systems are allowed to operate in the dark, when corruption, influence, and misconduct go unpunished, people lose trust. And when people lose trust, they stop believing in the institutions that claim to protect them. Transparency strengthens justice. Concealment destroys it. But inside that committee room, the narrative shifted fast. Suddenly, the Transparency Amendment wasn't portrayed as a necessary step toward truth. It was painted as a threat to a bill that needed to pass. A burden, a roadblock, something that was going to jeopardize a bipartisan effort. But here's the thing. The amendment didn't jeopardize anything. All it did was make some very powerful people uncomfortable. And Washington has a long history of prioritizing comfort over clarity. That's when another voice chimed in. The familiar tone of a seasoned negotiator trying to cool the temperature in the room. He framed the whole argument as a misunderstanding, suggesting the transparency issue should be brought another way at another time. A promise always made, rarely kept. Because in Washington, another time often means never. The senator who fought for transparency was put in a tough position. Push forward and risk the bill collapsing, or withdraw and trust that the promise of future help was genuine. In the end, he withdrew. Not because he was wrong, not because the amendment lacked merit, but because he realized the system wasn't going to let that truth come out. Not today, at least. And the moment he withdrew, you could practically feel the machinery of Washington exhale in relief. And that's where the real story lies. Because what happened wasn't just a disagreement over an amendment. It was a spotlight on how truth gets managed in this country. How transparency is treated as a privilege rather than a right. How powerful institutions protect themselves first and the public second. Think about it. If this was just a procedural issue, if the files truly had nothing explosive inside, if there was nothing to fear in releasing them, why block the attempt? Why neutralize it quietly instead of arguing openly against it? Why insist that transparency can only be pursued when it's convenient? Rumors online have swirled for years about the scope of the Epstein network, with some suggesting the files contain names of influential individuals, business leaders, public figures, and global elites. None of that is confirmed, but the public repeatedly asks the same question. If the truth is harmless, why is it being protected so aggressively? Even now, years later, people still don't know who had access, who visited, who benefited, or who helped protect the operation. And anytime the possibility of full disclosure surfaces, it seems to get quietly smothered. That's why this hearing matters. Because it wasn't about one amendment. It was about exposing the reflex inside Washington to cage the truth whenever it threatens to shake powerful circles. And here's the part people rarely say out loud. Transparency isn't denied because it's impossible. It's denied because it's inconvenient. Release of the full Epstein files wouldn't just answer public questions. It might raise new ones. Ones that point upward, not downward. Ones that can't be dismissed as conspiracy theories when they're sitting in official documents. This moment in the hearing revealed that the fight for the truth isn't over. It's not even paused. It's simply being pushed, delayed, redirected, wrapped in procedure, and hidden behind phrases like, "now isn't the right time." But the public isn't forgetting. Every time lawmakers sidestep the issue, it only strengthens suspicion that the files contain something someone doesn't want exposed. And if Congress can't even agree to release documents tied to a convicted trafficker whose case involved international connections, major institutions, and some of the most powerful men in the world, then what else is being kept from the public? That's why this moment matters. Because it's bigger than politics. It's bigger than party lines. It's about the principle that sunlight should never depend on someone's job title. That truth shouldn't be optional. And that the American people, who pay the bills for every agency involved, deserve transparency without being told, maybe later. The Epstein case has always been about more than one man. It's about a network, a system, and a culture of silence. And every time someone tries to drag that truth into the light, there's resistance. This hearing just made that resistance impossible to ignore if you care about accountability, if you care about transparency, if you believe the public deserves the full truth, not the filtered version. Then this is a story worth following. Because the fight to release the Epstein files isn't ending here. It's growing. And the more people pay attention, the harder it becomes for anyone to bury the truth again. That if you want updates as this unfolds, and you want more breakdowns of the moments Washington hopes you ignore, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. The truth doesn't fade. It just waits for people willing to chase it.